Hi, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So here we talk about everything career progression for nurses, carers, student nurses in and out of the UK, as well as entrepreneurship. So how can you start a side business to run successfully so you can retire early? But in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the reasons why nurses are leaving the NHS. So if you've had an eye on the news recently, you would have heard that nurses are leaving in droves. So thousands and thousands of nurses are leaving the NHS. So I'm going to tell you, why are these nurses leaving and where exactly are they heading to? So you want to watch this video till the very end so you get all of the facts. By the way, again, we cannot talk about why nurses are leaving without the data. So we need numbers, we need data. So basically, as you know, the nursing welfare regulator has actually announced that 48,000 new nurses joined the register. So this was up till I think June this year. So 48,000 nurses, that is a very, very big number. And obviously, you've got more nurses joining the NMC register now than ever before in the history of the NMC. But of those 48,000 nurses, 44,000 work for the NHS. So you can see that a large majority of nurses work for the NHS. I also work for the NHS. I've worked for the NHS ever since I qualified as a qualified nurse in the UK. And then the other 4,000 nurses work in nursing homes and, private companies, self-employed or just, wherever. But 44,000, which is a large number, work for the NHS. So recently it's been announced that, so basically Boris Johnson's government, obviously he's no longer the prime minister, but before he left, he had actually pledged to recruit 50,000 new nurses. When I heard this pledge, I was like, oh my goodness, this is the best news ever, because I knew that these 50,000 nurses cannot come from the UK. They definitely cannot come from the UK, because with the current measures in place, they are not even conducive for UK nurses to get into nursing, because obviously the budget was scrapped, tuition fees were introduced. These are really high. If you're having to work in clinical practice full time, have a family, it's very, very difficult. So people in the UK are not interested in doing nursing, and the numbers have reduced. In fact, UCAS announced this year that not only have they had a reduction in the number of people that are applying for nursing, but actually something else has happened. The universities admitted 7% fewer students this year than they did last year. So basically, despite the fact that there's an acute shortage of nursing staff, universities have actually admitted fewer students in nursing than they did last year. And knowing that dropout rates in nursing courses are very, very high, we would expect that there'll be even fewer nurses next year, which means that the shortage of staff is only going to worsen, sadly. But let's get back to our data as to why nurses are leaving. So it's just been reported, in fact, this was reported yesterday, that a whopping just over 40,000 nurses left the NHS leading up till June this year, which means that in a period of 12 months, 40,000 nurses left the NHS. Is this a ridiculous number? These nurses leaving, where exactly are they heading to? When they say nurses are leaving, what does it even mean? Does it mean that they're going abroad? Does it mean that they've left nursing? Does it mean that they've resigned? Does it mean that they've moved companies? Does it mean that what exactly does it mean? This is something that many people always wonder and ask Melvis, what does it mean? Where exactly are these nurses going? So the first thing I'll say is, the reason why the numbers are high, in fact, the main reason why so many nurses leave is because of retirement. So retirement is the biggest reason. And this is because in the UK, the average age for a student nurse is like 40s and 50s, which means by the time people are getting to study nursing, they're probably already in their 40s or in their 50s. Many of the nursing students in the UK have already had a career in something else, and they're just coming into nursing as a second or sometimes even a third career. What this means is that these student nurses don't have a long period of time to work in nursing. If you can imagine, if you get into nursing at the age of 50, if you qualify at the age of about 54, you've only got about 10 years really to work in nursing, which means that by the time it's 10 years, you're already retiring. So basically, the main reason why nurses are leaving the NMC register in such high numbers, the biggest reason is retirement, because people get into nursing when they're much older in the UK. They've already got families, they've already got children, and This reason also accounts for why there are fewer student nurses, going into university now. Because basically, if you're having more mature students getting into nursing, if you take away, free tuition fees, or you take away the bursary to support, people to be able to do placements as student nurses, what will automatically happen is that you stop those mature students from being able to access it. Because if I'm 50, I don't want to go to uni and take a loan, of I don't know, £60,000. One of my friends completed a nursing course and she's got like huge amounts in tuition fee loans and maintenance loans. So if I'm 50 years old, I don't necessarily want to do that. Considering that you've only got about 10, 15 years to work, it's not worth it. And this means that many people just decide like, look, this nursing is just not worth it. And then they just stay away from it altogether. And then even when they do join, because they're only working for about 10 to 15 years maximum before they retire, it means that the numbers, are going through really quickly. Unlike in countries like Asia and Africa, in many African countries, for example, there is a cutoff age to study nursing. And by the way, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed to the channel, just make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button so that you're the first to be notified when I post a new video. Because if you're enjoying this content, if you like content about nursing, career progression, entrepreneurship, setting up a business, personal productivity, then just make sure that you're keeping an eye on this channel, you're subscribed. Of course, it's very important, subscribe, and then you'll be the first to be notified. So like I was saying, in many of the African countries, they actually have restrictions, like age restrictions to study nursing, which means many countries have 30. So if you are over the age of 30, you cannot study nursing in many countries in Africa. So if you could say that in the UK, like, you would have very few people studying nursing basically. So what this means is that in Africa, because they have a cutoff age of 30, they have a very good workforce when it comes to nursing. They have many nurses. Some countries even have too many nurses than they actually need, apparently. I don't know, obviously, but these are the numbers that I have seen, that so many countries, because obviously people are going to be working for a very, very long time, and because also there's no career progression in those countries, what happens is that if a nurse gets a job, they're likely going to stay in that job for their entire career. This also means that it also reduces the shortage. But again, in the UK, there's constant movement, people are constantly changing jobs, so this also creates those vacancies that people are constantly needed. So like we're saying, the first reason why many nurses leave every year is because of retirement. And this is mainly because the age to get into nursing in the UK is between, say, 40. Many of the nursing students will be around 40 years old. And you see some that are 50 as well. In fact, I've actually seen somebody who studied nursing when they were 60. So you can imagine how long, they've got to work. It isn't really a long time. So, 10 years, you're out of the NMC register, and then this means that there's always vacancies, there's always opportunities for new people to join. And this is why recruitment, overseas nurse recruitment, is such a massive thing in the UK. It's because of the older population in nurses. And actually recently, talking about the older population, the World Health Organization recently actually wrote to the UK and advised the UK to address its nursing shortages, saying that because of the aging population, of nurses, not the UK people, but of nurses, considering that in the next 10 years, more than half of nurses in the UK will be retired, it means that they'll even be more reliant on other countries. And obviously the World Health Organization, they introduced the Red List, so they are trying to get every country to be self-sufficient in providing its own nurses. They don't want other countries taking nurses from, say, Africa or Asia, because obviously the UK, as you know, they've recruited over 26,000 nurses overseas in the last 12 months alone. That is a staggering number. So they're trying to reduce, the frequency of this. They're trying to reduce the numbers by saying to the UK, look, you've got to sort yourself out. You've got to do something about your nursing shortages, which hopefully, somebody will do something about it. But so far, as many nurses are retiring, we need new people that can replace those nurses. But not only that, but it's about working on retention strategies as well, which is something that at the moment is completely lacking, is completely missing, because all the focus, all the drive is literally on recruiting more nurses. So, it's just about seeing, the age. It's just about knowing that as nurses are retiring, they need to be keeping the younger ones, so that people are not just leaving, the profession all the times as well. Right. So the second reason why nurses are leaving the NHS is because of the pay. So the pay is so low, the pay is so poor, the pay is so bad, the pay is so miserable. In fact, I cannot even begin to express how bad it is. So the nursing pay, in fact, in the UK is got to be one of the worst in the entire universe. Because if you're a newly qualified nurse, you're going to start at band 5. So band 5, you earn about £27,000 per year. Look, that amount of money may seem a lot, especially if you're overseas and you're using your calculator. You're like, oh my God, I'm in Cameroon, France CFA, how much is this? You're calculating, you're getting things out. Or maybe you're in Ghana, you're checking with your local currency. Or you're, I don't know, in Nigeria, you're checking in Naira, how much it is. Or you're in South Africa, in Zambia, Zimbabwe. Look, it may look like a lot of money, but I can assure you that when you're in the UK, that money, because of the increase house rents, like prices have gone up for every single thing, and since COVID everything's just gone worse. It is a lot worse. So what's happening is that nurses are some of the lowest paid undergraduates. So when you look at many of the professions in the UK that require a university degree, almost all of them are better paid than nursing. And by the way, if you're interested in all of this, I'm going to be doing a video about the highest paying healthcare jobs that don't require a degree. So you want to look out for that. And if you need support, with your nursing career, I have a private coaching program where I support nurses, carers with career progression in the UK, helping you with interview preparation, optimizing your CV, teaching you about organizational culture, just to help you to progress so that you can earn more. Because as you can see, low pay is the second highest reason why nurses leave the NHS, or nurses leave nursing in the UK, because the pay is so bad. But I'm going to say that if you're a band 5 nurse, obviously it's really, really challenging. And the staggering statistic actually is that most of the nurses in the UK would never progress beyond band 5. So when you start your nursing career at band 5, you will retire at band 5. So fewer nurses actually progress to higher bands, because if you have a ward of, say, let me just give an example. If you have a ward with 35 nurses, probably 30 or 31 nurses will be band 5, maybe 2 nurses will be deputy managers, and then you'll have 2 managers depending on the ward. Some wards have 1 manager, some wards have 2 managers, but you see that the large majority of nurses really are band 5, and obviously you've got specialist nurses who are band 6, band 7, band 8, band 9, depending on the role that you've got. So those are nurses then that are progressing. You've also got managers, those are senior nurses. You've also got like nurse practitioners, you've got nurse anesthetists, you've got nurse endoscopies. So if you want to earn more in the UK, you need to be able to progress. And I think the negative thing about being why many nurses end up leaving is the fact that if you're unable to progress from band 5 as a nurse in the UK, you're going to stay and earn the same amount of money until you retire. Again, this is something that people don't realize, the fact that if you're unable to progress, whether by choice or because you can't get jobs, or it doesn't matter why you're unable to progress, because some people would argue that they haven't progressed because they don't want to. That's fine, but your pay is going to remain exactly the same until you retire from nursing. So when people get to that stage after 10-20 years in the same position, it can get really, really stressful. So that low pay is something that initially you may think, oh, I'm band 5, I'm happy, it doesn't matter. But as you're staying at the same level, 10 years you're doing the same job. Well, look, it's not actually the same job, because you'll still be doing more. You'll be in charge of the ward. People will expect you to know more, because if you've been a nurse for 10 years, you're going to be doing more. But the only difference is that you'll be working at a higher level, but you will still be paid at band 5, because legally you haven't successfully had a band 6 job. Which for me is the reason why focusing on career progression is the best thing, because even if you fail to progress, you're still going to be doing the role of a senior nurse, because as a nurse, you're always made to work one step ahead of your current band. If you're band 5, you're going to progress, and start taking charge of the ward. They'll start making you to do audit, but they'll still pay you band 5 if you don't go to an interview to get a band 6 job. So this is the reason why people get so stressed, and at the end of the day, they feel like, oh my God, I can't progress, I can't do anything. Maybe I should just leave nursing because there's nothing else here for me. And obviously, if you're still watching till this point, well done. There's a big nugget at the end of the video, and I'm going to be telling you where exactly these people are leaving nursing and going to, because it may be something that you want to consider. It's a free world. It's good if you think that's what's best for you. then by all means go for it. But like I was saying, if you think you need support with career progression, then get in contact with me. I have a private coaching program where I support with career progression into senior positions, as well as supporting carers in the UK to transition to become qualified nurses and then develop into those senior positions, as well as academic support for student nurses. Because like I was saying, student nurses tend to be mature students. So it could be that you've been out of formal education for a long time. And so that academic writing, the critical writing, Harvard referencing can be a very big challenge. So if you join my coaching program, then you get support with all of that process, your assignments, your essays, and it really does help just to make sure that you get to your dream of actually working as a nurse. And why not progressing? Because if you seek support, if you seek mentorship, then it's a lot easier for you to progress, so that you're not stuck at band 5 and you end up leaving nursing. Because many of these nurses don't leave because they want to, it's because they just feel like there's no way out, there's nothing else that they can do. They just feel really, really stuck, and they just feel like the only option is to leave. So low pay is the second highest reason why nurses leave. So the third reason why nurses are leaving is because of stress. So if you look at the previous two reasons, they lead beautifully to the third reason. Because if so many people are retiring in a short period of time, it means that they're leaving the wards. The wards are going to be very short-staffed. If the wards are short-staffed, the people that are remaining are going to be more stressed, under more pressure, because the workload is more. Patient expectation in the UK is very, very high. I can tell you now, if you're watching this and you're overseas, the expectations that your patients have, and that your management team will have of you is so high compared to what you're ever going to be able to offer, including the resources that you have. Because if you have a ward that should have 5 nurses, even if you have 2, you're still expected to do the same thing. You're still expected to treat patients the same. You're still expected to, you cannot reduce your standard of care with the excuse that you've got no staff. Nobody listens to that. They're just going to be like, look, you should do your best as a nurse. So that is why it's so challenging. And then at the end, people are just like, oh, this is too much for me. I'm leaving. I'm gone from nursing. I'm done, basically. So that is the stress. And again, if you can progress, you get out of that situation, you get into specialist nursing positions, you get into leadership positions, it's actually a lot better. It's a lot easier for you as well, so that you're not, just a junior nurse all the times. So that's why the pressure is so much at the level of band 5, because it's just so much, because you're the one that is delivering that direct patient care, that basic patient care. And the highest level of pressure is going to be on, the band 5 staff, because it's not easy. So stress, obviously, like we're saying, is the third highest reason why people leave. Because with the previous 2 reasons, if you are not financially stable, or you haven't got enough money, you're going to be stressed. If you're stressed, you're going to take sick leave. If you're off sick the first time in the NHS, that's, if you're off sick for a day, that's fine. You get paid obviously for your sickness. If you're off sick the second time, if it's for like a day or 2, it's usually okay. But if you're off sick for the third time, there's like sickness targets that you then get into. So you then get called by your manager, you get spoken to, you can even get a warning letter. So yes, sickness is paid, but actually you're going to get warnings if you have too much sickness. And this also leads to the stress that is felt by the nurses. So just make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, so that once I drop any video, you're the first to be notified. Share this with your friends. Make sure that you get the support that you need.